then bring up something like that. That looks like it says G-a value. That then is the identifier for GA4. That's the easiest way to do it as a base level. If you are confused or need help with it, please let us know. Happy to look. It's like I just showed, it takes a couple seconds. So the big change that happened between GA3 and GA4 is GA3 was based on page views and events as two different types of interactions. So what would happen is you load your page, you visit your website, or a user visits your website, and as the page loads, that is seen as a page view. If you clicked a certain button and you set up tracking on it, that would then be called an event. What GA4 has done is they've moved everything to an event-based model. What that means is when the page loads, it's an event called page view. If you click on the button, you specify the event name as button click. If a form submitted, that is an event called form submission. Those things are 100% customizable in that you can specify what you want to call it. So you can have, for our example here, we could have button click browse our workshops, or on the contact us page, if you click contact us, you could send this as an event to say contact us as an event. Everything is based on events. There are millions of possible ways of doing it. There are some specified recommended events, and I'm going to show those to you in the deck. So another big part that happened with GA4 is that GA4 is website and app data. So on your website, you would have your tag management, like I mentioned, and in your tag management tool, we highly recommend GTM, is that you then use GTM to send events to GA4. And then the other side of GA4 is your app data. If you have an app, you would then need to install a Firebase SDK, which then allows you to send events to GA4. So what then happens is, this is the famous diagram, is your data, which would have been two separate streams of information where you have an app and a web, will then be combined into one stream called your GA4 data stream in the interface, and then you'll be able to see how many people viewed certain pages on your website or viewed certain screens in your app. That is the foundation of the migration from GA3 to GA4. Does anybody have any questions? Cool. I heard a sound. Was that the recording starting?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So to go through our training today, I had a slide about myself. That's what I look like. Not putting my camera on. I don't look very nice today. But that's what I look like when I shave. You can call me Panda. That's my nickname. I've been doing this for a really long time. That's why I speak really quickly about it. If I am going too quickly, someone please stop me. I'm currently a solutions architect at F&B, but the amazing part about F&B is we get to do this on the side as well. So our agenda, going back to what we spoke about initially, is GA4. This is an advanced discussion where once we assume you have your basic implementation set up, your code is firing on your website, this is where you would then come to take it to the next level, to make sure you get the most out of the platform. You can set up tracking and just collect data to see what happens. That we actually do recommend that, to see what is happening on your website and what is collected. But then you do need to take it a step further to track what is important to you. So our current reality is GA4 is just the choice. You don't have a choice anymore. If you're going to make any changes, if you have GA3 and GA4 running in parallel, just make your changes in GA4. It's going to be better in the long run. I am going to use some screenshots out of, or I'm actually going to use the live demo for, this is Google's app called Flooded. It's a game. It's actually a pretty fun game. But the data that I'm going to show is out of this. If you ever want to explore a really well set up GA4 account, just to get an idea of what it should look like, you can click here. I preloaded it. It will then load demo account Flooded, and it looks like, that's what happens when you're clicking between things. It looks like this. So it doesn't say anything here, weirdly enough, but this is their demo account. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to switch between screens. So if you want to see something specific, or if you see something that's interesting, either make a note or raise your hand, and I'll answer the question as best I can. So GA4 is made up of data streams. So the term data stream is just a place where information is coming from. That would be the app or the website, like I mentioned. And to make sure that you are collecting data correctly, you will want to, presentation mode. you'll want to go into your settings, check your data streams, and you'll see that Google has specified that there's an iOS version, an Android version, and a web version. You should only have one web data stream per domain. If you have multiple domains, or if you have a fairly complicated setup where you have a shop on one domain and a website on another, you may want to consider doing cross-domain tracking, or you may want to have two data streams. GA4 is built to be customizable to serve your needs. That's the important part. If you're not getting what you want out of it, then you can make changes to get that information. Then Android and iOS, obviously the different platforms have different infrastructure. So your SDK needs to be installed in both if you have apps. So the web property is the easy one. I say that in inverted commas, but you can create a property. Most of you said you have it. You will then get a measurement ID, which is this G value, which is what we looked for on the NightJarr website. And then you need to install it via GTM. That's literally all you need to do. The Firebase side, or the app side, will always require dev work, just because apps are slightly more complicated. And you will then end up with an iOS version or an Android version. If you only have one or the other, that's the data you'll be able to collect. And you'll see you'll get something called a Firebase app ID. That's a value. This is out of the demo account. But the data will then start flowing through for that data stream. So there is extensive documentation from Google about Firebase. So there are 3 different versions. There's 3 different things you'll be setting up: iOS, web, and Android. They have specific languages, and it's in the deck, which I assume is going to be shared. You can then see that there is a key value pair model. So you'll have a name, event name, and the name of the event. You'll have a parameter and a value. That is across all 3 platforms, and that logic will be assigned in every single engagement point that you specify. So you'll have a name of an event and the value of that. You'll have an event name and a value for that event. The documentation is quite extensive. So if you are planning on doing this, I would recommend getting in touch with us or in touch with your devs, just to make sure that you are covering all the pieces of it.
Sheldon,
yes.
Just in terms of iOS and Android, I don't think there's anybody in the call that actually has an app. What Sheldon is just saying in terms of GA4 is you can track your app users and your website users, and you can see where they cross over. It's very good if you have an app, like Google Analytics 4 is amazing. But if not, like, ignore the last 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's just me speeding through my brain. Okay, cool. So in analytics, there are 2 types of events. They are automatically collected events. This is done by the code when you implement it. So even if you are using GTM on your website, there will be automatically events collected, things like page view, certain scroll things, certain click events are tracked automatically, outbound clicks are tracked automatically. And those are the things when I said you can implement the tracking and see what data is collected. If you were expecting to see scroll tracking, for example, and there's no report for it, you may need to implement it explicitly because the automatic tracking doesn't pick it up. Or if you were expecting clicks on outbound clicks to your shop or outbound clicks to wherever you store things like your brochures or something like that, that sort of, if that information is not there automatically, you then need to specify it. You then get enhanced measurement.
Sheldon. So just on events, like so Google Analytics is tracking your visitors on your site. So it's got like where did they come from, what browsers are they using, like what time did they come, which country did they come from. So that's like what most analytics, Google Analytics 3 and Google Analytics 4, that's what the most information that's the information that you get. So for example, you can see revenue and like where you're getting sales from. So what Sheldon is talking about is in GA4 is any action that somebody takes on the website is now called an event. So to make this practical is when somebody completes a lead submit form on your website, it's an event. So Tyler, for example, with you, when somebody signs up to the portal, That's an event. Debbie, for you, it's like when somebody makes a booking. That could be an event. Stephen, for you, it could be like somebody has subscribed to an auto ship. So it's like something happened on the website. And the reason why that something is important is that's the signal that somebody has purchased something or is about to purchase something. Does that make sense? Okay, because, and what he's talking about is setting up these events, and they're much more sensitive and powerful than the previous version. But what he's talking about is basically, it's like, how do we measure if somebody is giving an indication that they're ready to become a lead or a client? Okay, so and that's what he's talking about now. It's like, how do we know somebody's about to give us their details or like become a lead? Does that make sense? Okay, Debbie, do you have a question?
Yeah, so I'm thinking, should we be digging deeper into the events? Because that's...
So what Sheldon is talking about now is how do you set them up? Yes, that is correct. And then definitely the next part is to dig into the events, to go and say, did people download that PDF? Did they download the product brochure? Did they visit the contact us page? These are the events that's going to signal and tell you if your website is working, frankly.
Where the activity was.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So he's diving into like, how do you set up, to capture those signals in terms of what people are doing on the website.
Okay.
100%. Okay. So yes, the events are the biggest piece of the GA4 data set. And what the part that that's on this slide is there's automatic events, there's enhanced measurement, and then there's custom events. So the custom events are the ones that, like Freddie's saying, if somebody views a specific page or if they click on a specific button, those are your signals that you collect as events. Let's go here. You also get a list of recommended events. I have them here. Oh, this is automatic events. So there's a full list of automatic events that are tracked in GA4. There are some you'll see it's specific for app. Some of them are specific for web, like click. There's app error, there's file downloads. So this list, if GA4 sees it and tracks it in a generic way, if it's set up in a generic way, GA4 will report on it. Otherwise, you do need to specify your own collection method. Then your enhanced measurement is only for web, and these are the events I mentioned earlier. There's page views, there's scrolls. When as a user goes through the page, it checks how long the page is. When they reach 50%, you get a signal. There's outbound clicks, there's site search. If you do have a search function on your website, it will attempt to collect the keyword or the words that we use to search on your website. There's video engagement. So if you have videos hosted on YouTube that are embedded on your website, it will automatically be tracked. And then there's file download. So if you have regular files like CSVs, PDFs, video files, or audio files, funny enough, as well, it will automatically track it as a file download. Then you have recommended events. So GA4 is new in inverted commas. It is fairly new. And they've come up with a recommended schema of terms that everybody should use. So I know we've got some e-commerce people on the call today. So online sales, these are the naming conventions that Google recommends. You don't need to use it, but we recommend you use it because there's additional benefit to it. And you'll see that just now. So things like add payment information, add to cart. This naming convention needs to be specified by you. These are not automatic events, but they are recommended. Generate lead for the people on the call who have a form completion. Instead of calling it form completion, call it generate lead. The reason for this is if you use the schema that Google has given, you then are able to leverage functions, which I'm going to cover just now, that are automatic. So you'll get more benefit by just using this. Things like purchase, I'm sure you guys are already using it. If you are using the e-commerce report, that's the default name. And then for games, they came up with a specific list. The demo account is a game, so you'll see that level start, level end, level up. All of those are already in the platform. they use these terms or they use these event names so that they're standardization. So if you ever pick up someone else's account, or if Google wants to do trend data, these are the recommended events they'll probably start analyzing first. Then for e-commerce, this list that they came up with here is based on the 6 things that almost everybody should do: is selecting a product, viewing the actual product details, adding or removing it from cart, starting a checkout, making the purchase, of completing checkout, and then applying promotions. These 6 events need to be applied across every platform that you have in a standardized way. Then you have custom events.
This is Sheldon. So for Stephen and for Giannis, are those events automatically deployed, or like do they need to be set up?
They need to be set up. So the setup would need to be done through GTM and a data layer push. If you are using GA3 at the moment, the language is the same. The changes just need to be done in GTM to read the event. So something like purchase is the purchase event. Previously, add to cart didn't have the underscores in it. So there's slight variations that they've done to make it a little more robust. So we just need to align what is done at the moment to the new standards. But GA4 does understand certain ones, but it is better just to make the changes on the site in GTM.
Okay.
Cool. In custom events, so it's important to measure what's important to your business. So if you have a form that you know people need to download, or if you want them to sign up for your newsletter, if you want them to click on a certain button or to play a certain video, those are events that you need to specify. There is a full method of doing it. You can either do it hard-coded on the event itself. So if a person clicks a button, you can add code to the button, or you can do it via GTM. GTM is the recommended route because it is faster to deploy, has less reliance on dev, and you can make changes on the fly as you want. The event reporting looks like this. So I put the screenshots in here just because I know when presenting, sometimes the interface is slower. So you can then see that there was a screen view, and you can add additional fields. So I put platform here so we can see the difference between the screen view or using it. Well, let's go screen view. The screen view between Android and iOS, that's how many times it happened. So the event count is the number of times it happened. The number of users who saw it, so it's split out by event. And then it gives you an average, so an event count per user. So just looking at these two, you can see that iOS users, as much as there's less of them, they have a higher engagement because they've got more screen views. If there is revenue associated with it, you can also see that at this level. And then, like I mentioned, so the recommended naming convention of level start, posting score, level end, Google's using it on their own account so that they can get the most benefit out of it. So like we said, everyone's getting an event. Everything is an event. I love putting memes. Memes make it fun. Everything is an event. If you think you should track it, it is going to become an event. There's nothing else you would be able to send it as, but sending it as an event does have its immediate benefit in that you'll be able to see the data. Once it is being sent, if the event is being sent to analytics, you would then want to enrich it with other pieces of information. So if you know that a person is interested in your newsletter for a specific location or a newsletter for a specific topic, you can send that information as a custom dimension on top of the event. So in this example that they've got here, the read article, so someone read an article, that was the event that's sent, and they've enriched it with who was the author and who was the title. By doing that, they can then, you can, or the person who's using analytics, can then split out or report on how many views there were of Bill Q's article, for example. So if you have a newsletter for a specific location, you can then see, oh, this is the location as a separate report. If you want to know how many people viewed, Dennis, I'm using an example, how many people viewed the wedding ring section, you would then be able to see that quite easily. And then you'll be able to split it out to say the event is viewed a ring, Dennis uses True Diamonds. If person viewed a ring as the event, you could then specify the category of the ring or the cut of the stone. You can enrich it with whatever you want to make the report as valuable as possible for you. Cool. Any questions?
Okay, well, wait. So Sheldon, we're at half past. We've got two sections. There's the audience section, and then there's the data import and still the custom reports as well.
Yeah.
So in terms of the expectations of what people asked, I think if you can just show us like quickly like where you can see how many events happened. So for example,
Sure.
where you got bookings from or where you got sales from. So like just showing the traffic source with an event. So
Okay.
I think that could be quite useful to the audience. And then maybe if there's time left, talk about audiences, which could be quite useful. I don't think we should cover data import and custom reports at this stage.
Okay, so I think let me use the custom reports to show that information.
Okay, all right.
Cool. All right. So what I'm going to show is in GA4. So back to the interface. Let's go here. You can view your engagement. So engagement is where your events are housed. You can report on all your events, and you will see. It scrolls. There's the event names that I showed just now. You can then add information that you put in. So custom is your data. So if you implement some specific enrichment point, it'll then come up here under custom. I'm going to use the easy example of platform. So here we can see, like Ferdy said, you can see which browser, languages, devices, operating systems, screen resolution, language code. If you do work in multiple regions, you can also then go down to region, country. All of this information is there. And if you want to see where people came from, you can then view the traffic source. So something that's really important to know with GA4 is GA4 will track where a user initially came from, meaning if your first interaction was a Google search ad or Google display ad or an organic ad, that will stay with that user or that cookie for perpetuity. It never gets reset. The only time it changes is if the user changes their cookie. So if I clicked on an ad today and I come back to the website tomorrow, my first interaction will always be, so first user campaign will always be that ad, or the first user source is always that ad. If I want to know the session or the time, so yesterday, if I clicked on an ad, my first session and my session campaign would have been the Google ad. If I come back tomorrow and I come back directly, my first session, my first source is still the Google ad, but my session source would then become direct. So they've done that so that you can see what is the most valuable acquisition of users. So I'm just going to do session campaign. It loads. Okay, so this is important to note that this app, this specific data set is for an app. So a lot of people will be coming directly. And I ruined that by going into it. But what I wanted to show is the explore section. So that reporting interface is cool for just doing generic lookups and to see where data is coming through, if data is coming through. But what you will 99% of the time end up using is the explorations tab. The nice thing with this is you can see it does have loaded faster than I was expecting. It does have a list of all the previous interactions you've done. You can see I've done quite a few with this. But what you will always start with, what I recommend you start with is a blank canvas. And what you do is your dimensions of data is how your data is sliced up. So like I showed just now, there's demographics, so there's geography. Those things are now broken out, and you'll see there's a lot more options here. And that's why I'd actually recommend getting more familiar with the Explore, because all the data points are available here, whereas in the interface, it is actually limited. Google's trying to get more people to use this, and that's why they're limiting the interface. So for example, if we wanted to see for this account, the session campaign, we can import it as a dimension. The metric would be a count of what we want to do. So we can either do users, which is what I'm going to tick, so total users, and how many events happened from it. So there's event count. And then you literally just drag and drop. So if you've ever used a pivot table, that's basically what this will do.
Sheldon, just for Excel people, so the one is a column and the one is a row.
Yeah, exactly. So when it builds up, it's quite nice. Couple other features while this is loading is in this date range selector, I'd recommend using one of these, because if you use custom, it will be fixed to that date range every time you open it. Whereas if you change last 28 days, if you are doing regular reporting and you come into the interface, choosing the last 28 days will include, well, it'll always be the last 28 days. So here are the sessions, so the campaigns that brought people to the site and the number of events that happened. You can then also split out what event it was by event name, and then you can add it as a nested row or an unnested row if you want to. I'm just going to leave it as unnested. So session campaign, direct, these are all the interaction events that came from direct traffic. You can then also add more, let's not do too much. So then you can see not set means it was an app open. Invite a friend. So if you do have a specific marketing campaign, so let's say you are doing Google ads and you have a campaign set up with proper targeting, this could be the name of your campaign. You'll be able to see what people are doing from that specific campaign. The event count is just a count of events. So it's the number of times it happens. I would steer away at the moment. I haven't seen good results from it in the interface, but the unique event number seems to be problematic. I've raised it with Google, but total event count is quite spot on. Then if you wanted to see transactions, so if you have transactions set up, you can add metrics. You can see they've grouped them quite nicely. So you can see the number of checkouts. So if you have an event called checkout, it'll be the number of checkouts. If you have revenue set up correctly, or if you have item view set up correctly, they come as specific events. If I add this now, it's probably going to break it because this app doesn't do e-commerce, but that's the concept. But does that cover what you wanted me to cover?
Yeah, I think, would you be okay if I show them just in terms of answering a simple question, like so an event is, let's say, a purchase or PDF download or a lead form, right? Which is like what most people is. Well, I'm just going to quickly share my screen. I just want to show them where to easily see that. And then you can take over again. I'm going to show you some of our data, okay, so this is obviously the Google Analytics interface. We go to reports. So the question I want to answer is, where did the people that signed up for this workshop, where did they come from? Did they come from email? Did they come from direct? Did they come from Google Ads, Facebook, etc.? And then what I do is I go to user acquisition. So I click on that, and what it does is it loads the screen which shows how many users am I getting from different channels. Right? So I think most people on the call should be familiar with like their analytics telling them, are they getting clicks from organic or from direct or paid search or email? So that's this view at the moment. And then what I want to now answer is to say, is the people that signed up for this workshop, so we set up an event to when somebody is registered, it then registers this as an event. So we call the event the workshop register. So we click on that, and what it then does is it's showing how many users that we get from each one of these channels. So 128 from SEO, 81 from direct, 33 from paid. So this is in the last 28 days. But what we actually want to know is how many people sign up for the workshop and where did they come from. And here it says 2 people came from organic search, 17 came from direct, 0 came from Google Ads, and 29 came from email. So for example, for you, Tyler, then you can see like where people came that signed up. Maybe for you, it then can show you where did you get your leads from. And that's where the events can help you determine like which channel is delivering value for you. So this is a quicker way, an easier way to get to that data. Like what Sheldon has just shown you is the most powerful thing. I find it sometimes quite difficult to get to and to choose the right things, but this is a bit of a shortcut. Okay, over back to you.
Thank you. So yes, the 100%. The way Ferdy showed is if everything is set up, that drop downs are super useful. They are a little tips and tricks. The way I showed was my general way of doing stuff. So let me just share my screen again, and we're going to cover some audience segmentation.
So just before he starts with audiences, like any questions? Charlene, Natalie.
Don't feel shy.
Jonas. Okay. So
I'm still good, thank Patty.
Cool. So just before Sheldon shows these audiences, I just want to explain the value of this. So Debbie, for example, you mentioned audiences earlier, people that's already booked. So this is where that section comes into play, is to say, let's build an audience of everybody that has booked in the past. And then once you have that audience, you can then show Google Ads specifically to them with a specific special offer. Does it make sense? Okay. So Jonas, you know how these audiences work. So people that's bought an engagement ring may be in the market for men's ring or for the wedding band.
Exactly, yes.
Okay. So Stephen, for you, like you can build audiences based on the ownership of pets, like who are dog owners, who are cat owners, and then you can show them the relevant ads. Does it make sense? Okay, cool. Sheldon, over to you.
Cool. So on this slide, once you have the event, like Ferdy is saying, if you've got an event and you've enriched it with that information, you need to use it for something. And that something is audiences. Building an audience is based on what they've done on your site and what you know about them. So if you want to target, you could target only iOS users, for example, that come to your website. Or you could target people who are cat owners if you know that they've clicked on a cat product. So that's the assumptions that you would need to implement. Well, not the assumption. That would be the tracking you need to implement so that you can get that data and then build the audience based on that data. So by default, you will always have two audiences, a all users and a purchases. So if you this is from my sandbox account, that's why there's no data in it. But if you have no e-commerce tracking, you won't have a purchase event. But if you send the purchase event, it will automatically go into the purchases audience. The examples that are in the demo account is crashing users, so users who've experienced a fatal error. So that's important for them to know when the error fires, who are these users, let's build an audience of them. If you wanted to know who's interested in a specific location, just thinking about the apartments, or if they have a specific price range that they look at, if you send that information to analytics, you can build an audience of it. The audience builder also has a bunch of templates, so suggested audiences. So recently active, non-purchasers, purchasers, 7 days lapsed users. So these are users who have been to the site, but have not been active for the last 7 days. So this is really cool if you have, if you're planning on selling something to someone on an e-commerce site, but you know people have looked at specific products but have not come back to the site, then you'd want to reactivate them. You can also do people who were purchasers, which I think the bottom one's actually quite interesting. People who have purchased but have not been active for the last 7 days. So what that's useful for is if you know a person's bought product X, but product Y will go really well with it, you could then target the people who bought product X but not.
Sheldon, Debbie's got a question.
No, sorry. Thanks, Ferdy. I was just, I'm actually on our analytics at the moment, so I'm trying to follow. I was trying to, I couldn't find audiences, but I found it. I have found it under configure. Yeah, go figure. Thanks.
So just for reference, it is here on this pop-out menu. Configure brings up this event. In this, actually, I should show this is. When you send information to analytics, those event names come through here as an explicit list. You can then mark them as conversions. When you mark it as conversions, it appears in that drop-down that Ferdy showed, where you can then select, this is the conversion I want. Once you tick something as a conversion, it then goes into the conversions tab, which then shows you how often it happens, and you get additional metrics based. The audiences are here.
So should those mark as conversions be on or
if you
off?
It should be blue when you want to track it as a conversion. So if you have a purchase event, for example, so here they've got first open, in-app purchase, or level complete. Those are key moments for them. They mark them as conversions. The term conversion is just what they've always used, but it's just something that's more important. So like a very important event.
So Debbie, in our instance, we also have like a list of 30 events, and we've just chosen workshops registrations as one, and lead form submissions as another one. So yours could be a booking.
Yeah, you see ours currently are click, first visit, page view, scroll, and start session. So can I, when I want modify these events,
So what
create new events?
What we could do is just stay after the call and let's have a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. So then your audience builder, I've got screenshots because that's a demo account. This is where the naming convention, using Google's naming convention, comes in very handy. Is if you use the purchase name, or if you use sign up or lead generation, the generate lead, you will then be able to start using the audiences that rely on machine learning. So if you use generate lead, you'll then be able to get a list of users who are possibly likely to become a lead, or if a person is likely to not purchase and become a churn. Those are the sort of things you can pick up. The data requirements is quite high. I believe it's 1,000 events in a month. So you do need to have a fairly decent data set to work from. But if you are reaching levels like that and machine learning will become available to you, it's actually very, very powerful. So the builder, I'm going to use my demo account. The audience builder is very familiar to anybody who's made a segment in GA3. So you go to configure, go to audiences, create new audience, create a custom audience, or you can use these templates. You'll see that there are a couple templates here. Go create a audience. You then can include users, and then in the same way you build reports, you can then specify things you want to look at. So if you want to target users whose age is one of these, and you can tick them. It's quite intuitive at any point, and then it'll give you an estimate. So there's no data in this account, so that won't populate. But as you build it, you'll see this number of users in the audience will give you, if it's more than 50, that's the lowest number I've seen, it is 50 people. It then shows you how many users there are. You can then also do or statements and statements. So you could do users who are, let's go with female. So what this will do, it'll be the users in that date range or users that are all female. You can also then remove it there. And if you want to go with the and statement, you could then say people in a specific city. And if you have data, it will then pull up a dropdown. You could then say Johannesburg. And then it'll bring up the values. That's essentially the audience builder. You can start getting quite creative where you can group conditions together and you can add a sequence. I hear sound.
Yes.
Yes.
I've got a question. What is the recommended membership duration, like in terms of best practice?
It is dependent on how long your sales cycle generally is.
Okay, cool.
So if it takes a user 30 days to buy your product, that's how long your should be. The maximum limit, I believe, is 480 something days. It's just over a year and a half.
Oh, geez, okay, cool. Thanks.
Tatiana's has also got a question.
How's it, Sheldon? Thanks. So I've got two questions, and one is going to be difficult to formalize. But so the first one, if I look at the this audiences, so for e-commerce shop, typically I would then be able to say, well, which of my customers has spent less than, say, 100 Rand and therefore don't qualify for free delivery, right? And then target them to up their buying to 100 Rand, right? Can you do that?
You can. So just on a logistical, you'd have to send an event to analytics to identify that a user's purchase or previous purchase. If you have e-commerce set up, that's cool. You can use that as the level, but the user would then have to perform that action. So it wouldn't be, if a user's basket is less than 100 Rand, you wouldn't be able to target them at that moment. But if they've made a purchase and later you want to target them, then yes, you can.
Cool. Okay. Second question.
Yeah.
So as I understand GA4, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you can, through BigQuery, you can import data and then have it displayed on GA4, right? Cool. Is that
yes.
true?
Yes, there is a data import function.
Okay. Does this custom audience then, would that include imported data? So
yes, it does.
Yeah, okay. So that's great. So you can buy on e-commerce a product. Once you buy, you pay click, then that maybe you can import delivery data and track that too. So you can go deeper into that event section, right, with imported data.
Yes, you can.
That's very cool. That's really cool. Okay, thank you.
So the use case that the data import, and I'm just going to cover it because I think we're basically done with audiences. The use case for data import that's very powerful at the moment, because this doesn't rely on any other things outside of just having the right data set that's your first party data, is when a user completes a form, you can then match that on your side to know if that person ended up being a sale. So for example, we've got, I'm going to use Ferdy's example of the workshop registrations. We can then see, oh, these people have signed up, or these cookies have signed up for a workshop. They've achieved that event. We can then match it to how many people actually attended the event, and then import that as a separate data event into GA4 to say, these people have attended a workshop. That would be really hard to do because you don't come to the website, you're coming to a Google Meet. So we don't have that data point, but because we know you came to the event, we can then match it together and send it into GA4. What that will then do is, if we, for example, Ferdy said that no one from search came to the event, but we know that email led to 50 attendees, then we know that that was more valuable than anything else.
Yeah, but the principle still applies. You can import external data and view it and make it part of the custom audience. And that's seriously cool. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. And then just for reference, there is still old school audiences. We call them old school audiences now. Is if a person views a specific page in your website, you can build a audience based on if they visited your homepage or your product page or a specific section of your blog or whatever. That's still available, and you just need to choose that page path and query string and then put in the URL that you want to target. So that still exists. Cool. 5 minutes left. Any questions? Comments?
I'm good. Thank you so much for everything, Sheldon, as always. Everything is very helpful.
Welcome.
Sheldon, sorry, I have another question, if you don't mind.
No, go for it.
GA4, is it cookie based, or is it driven by some other form of measurement? And will we see the same amount of volume of traffic displayed on GA4 than GA3? All things being equal.
All things being equal, you should see a relative equivalence. What we found with GA4 is the numbers are slightly lower because there's a higher threshold for excluding bot traffic. Okay. So if you have 100 users in GA3, you might have 95 users in GA4.
And it's still cookie-based.
It is still cookie-based.
Okay.
It's not reliant on cookies in the same way, but cookies do play a role in the user count because that's the only identifier that GA has.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, that was a great question. Let's wrap up. I think there's been quite a number of people that would probably find these events useful because that's showing purchasing intent. So what I'm doing is I've just posted a link in the chat on how to set up those events, a workshop that we did a few months ago. So the title is a little bit misleading. It says top KPIs to generate more B2B sales, but what it shows you how to set up an event. So you're welcome to download the deck or go and watch the video. Any other questions in terms of what we spoke about? Happy, any questions? Giannis? Steven?
I'm good, thanks, Steve.
Sky, we'll send you the recording and the deck. I saw you struggle to get in. Debbie?
Thank you very much.
Cool. Debbie, any questions from your side?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, we're relatively new to the whole analytics thing, and we're obviously just finding our way.
Okay.
But we will build it because that's what we need.
Okay. Refiwe, I see you've asked the question.
Hi guys. I just wanted to ask, was the session being recorded, and will there be a recording shared with us?
Yes. Luckily, the recording was recorded, and we'll also send the deck over to you. Just give us a few hours to just process it.
Okay, no problem. How will it be sent to us? Do you guys have our email addresses?
Yeah, email. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, you guys do have our email addresses.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. No. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. In terms of if you have a requirement to, like, Google Analytics 4 can be quite complicated. So if you have a specific use case that you need help with in terms of implementing it, please let us know. That's what we do. We set up these things. But it's really important to make sure that we get the use case right, because Google Analytics is worth nothing if we're not getting insight from it and it's not usable. So it's very important to start with that in mind. Like Sheldon, I think what you've seen is Sheldon is incredibly technical and skilled in the thing, but it's very important to define, like, if we do something in this complicated platform, like, what is the business outcome? Is it to get more leads? Is it to target higher value customers? That's a very important and a good place to start.
Objectives.
Okay.
Sorry, if I can just quickly interject here, Ferdy. Sorry, Rifu, we actually don't have your email address. So there's a few people that we do not have. So I'm posting my email address in the message. So if you can just please pop me an email over, and then I can send the recording and the deck to you personally.
Okay, no problem. I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
If anybody wants to continue a conversation or share the analytics account in a non-recorded session, Debbie, I know we can look at your account quickly. I've just shared a link to jump on another call. We're not going to record that session. If you feel comfortable to open up your Google Analytics account, we can quickly check and see if we can debug the issue for you or help you find the issue, solve something.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Anybody else is welcome to join the session. Cool. Thank you, Sheldon. That was amazing. Like I'm gobsmacked of how much you know about GA4. Thank you for the session.
Thank you, Sheldon.
And thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, Sheldon.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, Debbie, I'm gonna jump on that other call. I'll see you there. Did you see the link there in the chat? You're muted.
Yeah, I did. Let me just try and get to it, and then I'll see you there.
Okay.
You want to go out of this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna go out of this one now. Okay. Did you get the link?
Yeah. Just can't go find it. I'm working off my phone. This is just.
Want me to email it to you? Maybe easier.
Yeah, it probably would be, but let me just not be useless.
How's it? Damn, dat ek nie Debbie se freaking email adres nie. Hulle het van LinkedIn afgekom. Ek het vir hulle almal 'n link gestuur na die event toe. Kom eens kyk hier so, Debbie. Ah, hier is dit. Kyk of ek haar e-mail kan kry. Debbie@Devcom. Yes, maar Sheldon is tegnies, hè? Oh, there we go. Cool. Yes, if you can. Are you on your phone? Nobody's not new to it. It's probably only Sheldon. I've emailed it. I can email it to. Debbie@Devcon. Can I send it there, or is there another date? Okay. Let me send it. I'm sending it now. Yeah, it's gone. Just send it. Okay. Is all your booking attribution data going into the booking engine, the referral? Yeah, we can fix that for you. Yes. What's your URL? Corporate department group. TCA group. Yes. I sent it to. Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to stop the recording for you guys.
Oh, thanks.